Usual disclaimer here, it's just important. We are going to talk about specific trades, specific results, setups. I think everybody understands there's risk in trading, and just have to make sure that everybody knows that there's profits and losses, and we like to always show both anyway. Everything that we talk about tends to include, especially when we're talking about weekly averages and anything like that, we're talking all in with the losses, with the gains, the break-evens, all trades together. We already mentioned we're going to be talking about best opportunities for the global-based trader. We'll demo the PTU strategies to show you on some of these specific markets. So we'll be really focusing specifically on that topic. And then we're going to talk to you about how you can become involved in the Premier Trader University. We have an upcoming class, which is exciting, that's now just opening. So we'll be talking to you about that as well so you can get started with the PTU. A lot of you know that we go back all the way to 1996. We've been doing this now for 17 years. We've worked with traders in 105 countries. That's myself in the top left, Mark Soberman. Brian Short, there on the right-hand side. He's also in the background answering your questions right now. We've been featured in a number of the major publications, been at all the major international expos. And the key, I think, that sets us apart, besides being around for 17 years and seeing the markets go through many different gyrations. 17 years ago, nobody was trading Forex, right? So a lot has changed. We also are all actively involved in the markets, and our staff as well is in the markets every day. Everybody came to us originally from the customer side. You're going to be hearing in detail today from James Kessick in the middle there, our UK-based trader and analyst, and then Troy Noonan you'll be hearing from. He's based in the West Coast, and he's going to talk to you about the trend jumper and the opportunities in the European business hours. So this is just some of the team that helps support the PTU overall. So with that, I'm actually going to hand this directly off to James and let James get started on the presentation on the specifics in the European session. So James, it is all you.
Thanks, Mark. Right, let me just get this going. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yeah, it looks great, James.
Okay, brilliant. So I just wanted to go through a few things about the European hours and trading in them. Some of the pros and cons of trading the European session, the markets to trade, and specifically access to those products, trade approach, special considerations, in particular the EU session trade room, which I'm now looking after, and then some examples. So looking at some of the pros, and what the European session really does for everybody, and I think it's fantastic, is that it allows you flexibility. If you have no time to trade during your local session because of work or family constraints, which I know a lot of people do, it gives you the opportunity to trade some really great liquid markets. If you're trading from a different time zone, if you're in Australia, say, or if you're in the UK or Europe, anywhere, maybe you just want to trade different times because of that. Simply because you might have the preference to trade at different times of the day. You might want to trade during the evening. You might want to trade early morning. Lots of different people have entirely different preferences, and this is what we've got with global markets, and it's fantastic because you can choose. You have the choice now. And most people have access to all those different markets. And then, like a number of the people I know, it gives you the opportunity to entirely avoid the US session if you so choose. Now, some people just do not like the US session and how it trades. I'm not one of them, but some people don't like it and therefore will only trade during, say, the European session morning. So moving on, then you've got the preference for different products. Now, of course, there are many, many different products that you can trade, even some US products in the European session, but some great products, like the Bund, the DAX, products like that have a very slightly different feel to products, say, such as the 10-year or the Dow in the US. And people get very, very attached to their specific product. Now, I'm not saying that you should only trade one product, but you might find that you have more success in an ever so slightly different product than something else. So some of these European products gives you a different feel, gives you a different option, really, to trade. Then, of course, comes the opportunities in the different regions. At the moment, obviously, we have things going on in Europe with the debt crisis and so on and so forth. And some of these opportunities can be there and gone, and you might want to get in there and trade during the European session, the primary part of the European morning, to take advantage of that. There can be some great moves. Of course, it's not always going to be that way. It might be that there's focus on the US and the fiscal cliff, so on and so forth, but it gives you that option to trade another region. Then, of course, something that maybe some people don't really pay too much credence to, which I think they should, is that actually the European session can really set the scene for the US session. It can either show really what's going to go on in the US session, like be a precursor to the activity in the US session, or it can even push way out of whack, and you can get an opportunity for a reversal type trade. If you're a European trader, a European-based trader like me, having the opportunity to trade right through, if you have the stamina, I guess, really gives you another choice, because it shows you the progression of one session into another. So just moving on, looking at some of the cons. I mean, the US market can really be a big focus. There's no doubt about that. It's a huge market. It's a huge part of the global economy, and that can weigh heavily on all markets. So, and you're not always going to have the same level of focus on Europe. Right now, the debt crisis, as I've just said, and over the last few years, but it's not always going to be that much. However, European markets are big markets, and they will always trade. And the next one's kind of debatable. It's whether the US economic releases, if you're just trading primarily in the EU morning, you might skip those economic releases at all. Now they move the markets. They can move some European markets. They can move the US markets as well, obviously. But really, if you're trading the morning, you might completely skip over those. If you do, then, well, it's debatable. Are you missing opportunity, or are you missing out on the chance to get really burned? I don't know. I mean, it depends what type of trader you are, but they certainly move the markets, so it's a consideration. And then another thing that I would argue is there's probably more different news sources, news influencers, because there are just lots of different countries, obviously, that do have some of their own policy setting. Then obviously there's the different central banks. It's not just the ECB, there's the Bank of England, etc. as well. And then there's all the politicians from different countries, Germany, Italy, Spain, Portugal, Great Britain, so on and so forth. So maybe there's just a few more sources, and when there is a lot of news flow, it can get a little hectic. So looking at markets to trade, I mean, really many different products have brilliant liquidity in the EU session, including some US products. If you think that that's an option that you want to explore, they will move slightly differently, and they will be slightly less liquid, but they'll still move. But really, you can trade anything: futures, stocks, options, forex, and anything that you can trade anywhere else. You can trade in the session. It's just another session, right? In particular, we could look at futures for Brent crude, which is different to the crude light. I'll have a look at that, just an example on the next slide. The Bund, the Buchsal, which is a 30-year bond future, German government bond future, the DAX, which is the European German blue chip stock index, the FTSE 100, the long gilt, the Euro FX futures, spot FX, and of course lots and lots of others. I mean, there are too many really to mention here. But you get the idea. There's plenty of opportunity, plenty of choice, and it's just a case of having a look what there is and looking what actually makes sense and is profitable. So, for start times, I mean, of course, this is about convenience mainly. I'd imagine with a lot of you guys, some it will be diversification, some it will be preference, but a lot of people will be trading or wanting to trade the European session because of start times. And typically, what I've been seeing is that we're looking at between 8 a.m. and 10 a.m. GMT. Now that's 3 to 5 Eastern Standard Time. So, that's not really that variable from what I've seen. I mean, it can do, but if you're looking after that, maybe you're sort of into the bulk of the session that you want to trade. Before that, maybe not everything's got going quite as much. I mean, it depends. It really does depend on the product, though. The other thing that you have to consider is historical data and whether, of course, on TradeStation and NinjaTrader you're going to be able to get the availability of the specific product that you're looking at. It's all very well having a look at the particular market, seeing on a forum or one of your friends says, "Oh, do you look at this?" But if you might not be able to get sufficient historical data, even if you can trade it, you might not be able to get sufficient historical data to ultimately be able to test that properly. And of course, we need to do our testing to make sure that we have some level of edge in the trade plan and have the confidence to execute it. So this was just the example of Brent versus crude, and basically it's European session equivalent, if you like, of crude. It just trades literally very, very much like crude. It's oil. It's the same thing. It trades on ice. But you can see I just put up a graphic here between 3 a.m. and 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on each, and it's about 50% more volume and range. And then early on, you can see that crude does far less volume realistically. It's still tradable, but then after 8:30, very quickly it starts to trade much more than Brent. But that's one thing you can trade earlier on. So, I mean, the trade approach is very much the same as everything else. You're looking at the usual systems, you're looking at the usual methods. You can use PTU2, Trend Jumper, or any other NetPicks product. We're talking about Keltner recently. That's another one that is great and will do, given the right trade plan, fantastically well, I'm sure. So, I mean, you can intraday trade it, you can swing trade it, or, of course, you can position trade it into the US session. So you can pre-position to get into a position for the US session, how it's going to move in that session. You can get in maybe at an advantageous price prior to that. So just looking at some of the special considerations, you're going to be looking at different economic figure release times and different economic figures which are important, and these are just the same things as when you first started trading. You just have to get used to what's important, what might move the market, and what you should be aware of. And of course, different speakers are important. So, you might hear all these different names compared to US session, names that come out and comment on monetary policy and this and that. So, like, there's Merkel, there's King, there's Draghi, there's Juncker, Constancio, all these sorts of names that maybe you just aren't aware of right now, and it's something that, again, just takes a little bit of time getting used to. and there's more different central banks to watch out for as well. So you've not just got the Federal Reserve equivalent, which is probably the ECB. You've also got the Bank of England, you've got the Riksbank in Sweden, you've got the National Bank of Poland. And not all of these, in fairness, will have the same degree of effect on the markets as the big ones, but it's more than one, and it's something that you have to be aware of. Quite importantly, recently you've had the sovereign debt crisis, and because of that, the bond auction results have been really quite important as well, and the ability of these countries to actually borrow and the cost of their borrowing. So the results of these auctions have been pretty closely watched in certain cases, and I can remember occasions recently where things like a good Spanish bond auction has supported stocks going right forward into the US session, and that's goes back to what I said earlier about being able to follow one session on to another. And then, of course, you have all these different earnings as well to watch out for, depending on, of course, what you trade. There are lots of different stocks in Europe. Of course, again, you've got French, you've got German, you've got Spanish, you've got British, you've got all different companies. So it's just getting used to. Okay, and this is just obviously a quick chart from Forex Factory just to show you the different times that you would typically see figure releases. So, moving quickly on to the EU session trade room, it's every Tuesday and Thursday at 8:45 to 10:45 GMT. We're going to be doing live trades for multiple products, multiple different products, including Forex, using PTU2 and Trend Jumper. We'll be looking at trade plans, back testing, and how to really use the Ultimate Trade Analyzer, which is a fantastic tool, which I'm sure Troy will talk about again later, because I know that he really uses that very well, makes great use of it, and it's something that if you're not aware of already, you need to have a look at, because being able to look at your trade log and analyze it and have it be useful to you going forward, and being able to adjust your plan based off that, that can be invaluable. Importantly, for the systems that we use, the key level and the chart level adjustments, sometimes people find a little bit difficult to get to grips with. It's not too complicated. It's not something that's crazy difficult or anything like that, but you do need to be aware of how to do it, and once you get a bit of practice and you see the examples, then that's something that you can really just run with quite easily. Massively importantly, and especially as I noticed a lot of you were saying that you're maybe break even at the moment, trader psychology, that's potentially the next step. Taking things forward from a psychological point of view will have a knock-on effect with everything, like the level of preparation you have, the ability to execute a plan, and so on and so forth. And then, obviously, most importantly, you have the opportunity to ask things live. I've got experience, a number of years experience in trading. I know these systems well, and you can ask me anything, and if I don't know, I'll get back to you. But really, being able to ask something live is possibly what separates it. I think that when you don't have that opportunity, sometimes you can get bogged down by little details that either don't matter or simpler than you thought, or whatever. So it really does help. Anyway, just quickly moving on, finally to some examples. Here's just a few charts just to show you what the two systems look like. At the top is the PTU, and at the bottom is Trend Jumper. and some specific examples of trades this morning. And you might say, oh, wow, that looks a bit crazy. You don't have to organize this one like this. We've got a new breakout setup that's just come on PT2. I've just put it all on one chart and just color coded it. I can tell the difference, but you can put them separately. You can just trade one, you can trade both. It's up to you. But basically, you can see that there's a start time for the trade plan. There's something called get in sync, which is if there's a signal early on, you can actually take that if it fulfills certain criteria. In this case, it wasn't possible because it didn't go break through the entry signal, which is the little plus, after the start time. Then we didn't have any trigger-ins until a little bit later on, until here. And this is where I was talking about the key level and chart level adjustments. We're just around swing highs and swing lows, for example. And this is where we would have taken an adjustment, possibly 1 or 2 ticks even. And the market gave us a very nice move right down to the full target of 142.05. So that was probably 12, maybe 11 ticks, depending on how your trade plan panned out. So this is Trend Jumper, and I should have said that last market, sorry, was the Bund, 10-year German government bond future. This market is Brent crude, and we're looking at Trend Jumper Pro. I've got a trade plan which starts at 4:50 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now we had another one of these get in sync opportunities, which I'm sure we'll talk about more later. In this case, I would have passed on it because you had to do too many adjustments. I think the problem is if you have a certain amount of profit target and you keep adjusting and adjusting, you're just skewing the risk reward, and it's just not good. So I will, within my trade plans, if there's too much adjustment, I'll just pass on it completely. There was another small trade opportunity here. Now, small trade opportunities, they're trades that really can turn into big trades. If you get very small signals, small targets generated when the market really tightens up and is in this range, and then breaks out because it has some imbalance or some new information to price in, then they can be great trades. However, in this case, this is not one that I would take because it's at the end of a swing. So you can see that we moved right up here, and then it was generated. So that's another one that I would have passed on. And you know, this is some of the stuff that I will cover in the trade room, in the EU trade room. So actually, the first signal that was taken would have been this long at 117, and it was actually 79. But the 0.1 would be a key level adjust, so you adjust around it. So we enter at 0.81. And it actually very quickly got up to the full profit target, which was fantastic. It was not my intention to automatically show you two trades which did work, but they don't all. They really don't, and that's the point. At the moment with these trade plans, you're talking about one and done. You hit one target and then you're out. But had you lost on the first trade, you might have carried on trading and tried to move forward and become positive on the day on that particular trade plan. And the idea behind that is you're looking to capture a move, there will be one, maybe two moves in the time frame that you're looking at. And so by keeping on trading, that's what you're looking to profit on. So, I mean, that's pretty much it. I hope that just gave you a brief overview of some of the possibilities. And yeah, be glad to answer any questions later on.
Great, thank you, James. Appreciate that.
No problem.
Let's continue on then. You could definitely ask questions in the question area as we continue to move through this. One thing I wanted to stress in the markets that James showed you is we kind of have a mantra here that you start with one market, one contract, and then any plan or plans that you do, you can scale to be this consistent part-time or even full-time business endeavor for you. And that's kind of really key. And so the things that we always like to stress that you see in our charts, and those of us who have been to these presentations before, you know, we stress this a lot, having exact entries, targets, and stops. So every chart that James showed you always had a roadmap on the chart, so you knew exactly what to do. You knew what your risk was. You knew that you had the ability to obviously place the orders in your order management system exactly as you saw them on the screen. One thing that's always important is be able to get the speed of execution. Most people have a hard time with that because they don't have all these specifics on their screen. They do a lot of guessing and subjectivity. With the PTU2 and the PTU trend jumper, you can eliminate all those possibilities as well as eliminate mistakes because everything is very much clear-cut, whether you're trading Brent crude, the Euro bond, the Buxel, the DAX, or any of the Forex markets. Now, it is important, like James was stressing, that you adhere to the trade plans, right? The last thing you want to do is derail and not follow the trade plans, but you also have to understand drawdown, right? Because any plan is going to have a series of winners and a series of losers, but it's all about being able to scale your account on a consistent basis to new highs. Like the 55% of you who are break-even, starting to get off that break-even level and starting to actually have an equity curve that goes to the upside. Sometimes it needs the secret ingredient in trading, a little bit of patience, because some weeks are really generous, some weeks are not. If you can just be patient with it, you can absolutely grow your account from a shockingly small number to a very large account with multiple contracts, which I'm going to show you here in a moment. And the way that you do that is through position sizing scale. You have to have an edge, meaning you have to have a real trading system that really works in real-time markets. You need consistency, controlled drawdowns. You can't lose 75% and then expect to make it all back. It's just probably not going to happen. You need a trade plan that details everything. You have to follow that plan diligently. You want to minimize the time you spend in the market, eliminate the mistakes, and then what's really important is you don't want a market that doesn't scale. I know a lot of people who've done a little bit of Forex and they start with $300 and they double their money and they start to think, well, if I had $30,000, I'd be able to double it to $60,000. And then I think a lot of you know what happens. Everything falls apart the second you actually start trading with any size. And there's a variety of reasons for that, but that defeats the purpose. You never want to be trading anything that doesn't have the ability to scale because it's really easy to trade one contract and then double your income or triple your income. There's no business in the world where you can expand a business just by moving your finger over on the keyboard. But until you master one contract, one market, right, the whole luxury of trading isn't something that's available to you. But once you do, it's probably the best feeling in the world because you know it will take no extra time to trade the second contract, no extra time to take the third contract. And just to give you an idea of scale and scaling, this kind of gives you an idea of a variety of plans that we have on futures and also Forex. And you can see when you start with one contract and then you're able to go to two and you're able to go to three, it's fairly significant. It's just mastering that first contract, whether it's the bond, the DAX, the pound yen, the euro US, Brent crude, whatever the case may be. They're all at different sort of levels of performance, but you can see just how amazing this business can be if you just kind of crack the code really, on that first one. Let me go ahead and show you on my charts a couple of markets that I like to trade or have the opportunity to trade if you are in European business hours. And one of them that James had mentioned was the Euro FX futures. This is a really great market to trade in both the European and the U.S. market hours. It's already traded almost 250,000 contracts just today. And I know a lot of you are familiar with spot currency like the Euro US dollar, and that's great. You can absolutely trade the Euro USD during European market hours. But a really great opportunity is this market, the EC, the Euro FX, because even now in the afternoon, I mean, it's 2:40 in the afternoon, and the spread is only one tick or pip at this point. Really narrow. It tends to be one or less sometimes, depending upon how your broker works, but I almost always see it being just one pip, and then all you pay is commission. And a lot of times you're going to execute not having to pay like in Forex where you're forced to have 1 or 2 or 3 pips spread. You can get executed most times at the price you want, and then your only cost is a round-trip commission, which typically on something like the Euro FX is about $5. So think about a market, if you're trading a standard size Forex pair and your spread is just 2 pips, which is reasonable, that's $20 versus on Euro FX, the same sizing is no more than $5. Well, that brings your cost down on every single trade that you take. So this was a trade from this morning during the European market hours. It all was based upon our trend power indicator down below. As you might expect, when the trend power goes from red to green, we get a buy set up. You always have an exact roadmap. We kind of call it a GPS, meaning you have an exact entry at 1.3469 and an exact target 2 at 1.3488. That ends up being, in this case, 19 ticks or pips, and it's $12.50 per pip. This ends up being, for just a single contract, $238. And this did not rocket ship to target, right? I mean, if anything, for a little while, you were clearly underwater. In fact, you were coming down towards the protective stop. But unlike a lot of traders, no subjectivity, no guessing, no random, no praying, no hoping. You knew that, look, if it gets down to here, I'm going to be wrong on the trade, and I'm going to get out. This enabled us to stay through some of that, what we call trading heat, and then stay in until the full target overall. Now, Euro Yen is another one that's really nice to trade. Let me show you Euro Yen here, and I got to make sure I bring up the. This is U.S. session, so let me bring up the other one, which is European session. Again, another market that you can trade both European, and we have 2 distinct market times, European session and U.S. session. By all means, you can trade both. Once again, very specific roadmap, all based upon, in this case, the trend power and a pullback into our support zone. Once we do that, and none of this is black box, you'll know exactly why a specific bar has a setup. You'll be given the exact prices that you're going to want to execute on this trade. And this trade also worked out to be pretty similar overall. In this case, about 29 pips. It's a little bigger trading range. It's 8 pips as opposed to the Euro US or the EC, which was 5 pips. And we use range bars or momentum bars on a lot of our active trading plans, or tick bars. You're going to see that a lot. Now, Troy is going to talk to you in a moment about actually using daily bars on Forex. But once again, you know, this having the structure enabled us to stay in that trade. Now, we can look at it in 20/20 vision and see, okay, this one went ahead and made full target. But, you know, when you're trading in real time, and the trade comes up on the right side, you don't know, right, what's going to be next. None of us know what that pattern's going to look like. But we always have the exact structure on the chart, so we know to stay in no matter what until we get our target, or if we stop out, we move on to the next trade. Now, one thing I like to show a lot is, let me kind of show you this, on the Euro FX futures, averaging about $220 per week on one contract, $4,000 since mid-October on our best plan. That's over about $45 a day. It only trades at most once per day, so the costs are very, very low. The Euro Yen, very similar, actually probably a little bit higher. The second column here is all based upon European market hours. It's averaging about $274 a week. Winners and losers combined, about $55 per day on average, just with one standard. You can see most weeks are positive. The drawdowns are very maintained, very manageable, and a really nice average. Now, $45 or $55 sometimes to people doesn't feel like something that you can make a full-time income with, but I like to show this, and we'll go through this briefly, and then I'll hand it off to Troy here. Starting capital of $5,000, right, a very modest amount. If you average just $40 a day, let's say after commissions, and then there's some other assumptions here, but basically what this is all about is saying that you're going to wait until your account grows to $20,000, because it's more important to grow your account first with profits, then start to take money out. And we can tweak that number a little bit, of course, And then ultimately, I want to take out $10,000 a month. Now, it seems kind of crazy. How can you make 40 bucks a day and be able to get to the point where you can make $10,000 a month out plus grow your account? Well, it takes a little bit of time, as you imagine. There's a little bit of compounding. In the first month, you make $800. You have a little bit of cost, of course, and you end up netting $750. So for the first several months of the year, we're staying pretty firm, right, at one contract because we've said we're not going to increase our contract size until we can afford the additional risk. But towards the end of the year, we start going to 2 contracts. So by the end of the year, we're trading 2 contracts, and we've grown our account, tripled it in 1 calendar year. Not on get rich quick, not on all the bogus stuff you see out there. Very consistent, $40 per day. If you outdo $40 a day, and maybe your average is $50 a day, I mean, look what ends up happening just at the end of 1 year. The first year, you've quadrupled your account. Now go ahead to the second year, and by the mid part, or really the early part of year 2, you're starting to take money out of your account and grow your account. By the end of the year, you've got $66,000 in your account. Remember, this started with $5,000, and you're taking out $4,500 per month. At the end of the 5 years, and it won't even take you 5 years, you can see literally by the end of year, in this case year 3, we're almost up to the $10,000 a month. By the 5-year part, you're taking out $10,000 a month. You've taken out $335,000 into your pocket, and you have $115,000 in your account that's going to allow you to do that max 10 contracts. This is all with $40 a day, or in this case, $50. So I always want to stress that to people because this is about really turning this into a real business for you, and that's the real key overall. So Troy, let me hand it off to you and show us some more opportunities for the Euro traders.
Great. Well, every time I see that, it makes me want to follow my dream and move to Paris. Of course, my wife and kids aren't going to go for that. All right, let me just find my chart here. Let me know when that comes up. I'm going to show you 2 examples. I'm going to keep it real short and sweet. I want to show you the anatomy of a trend jumper trade because it doesn't matter what market or chart you put it on. And I always like to show you the fresh stuff. So let's take a look at today's DAX trading. If you're trading the European session, the 233 tick chart is the one that I've been following. I'm sure there are other charts that would work well. And let me blow this up a little here. I like the one and done, power of quitting 1. We talk a lot about power of quitting. It's a way to take what the market wants to give you in a dynamic way and move your account forward on a steady basis. And so you're really shooting for that average win, you know, like what Mark was just showing you, so that you can really turn this into a business and grow your account, ramp it up over time, and that's something we stress a lot with training. So, you know, if you get 1 full winner with the trend jumper, with the DAX, you're done for the day. And it so happens, if you start at 9 a.m., there was a trade that was already too far to take. So you come in on the next trade, and that's right here, about 36 minutes later. Takes a few bars, but it ultimately triggers in, shoots down to its target, picks up 8 points. That's, you know, 8 times 25 euros. And then the second position, if you're trading 2 positions, ends up stopping out with 1 tick to cover the cost of commission. That's going to happen a lot. And then basically you're done. And every trend jumper trade is going to look like this. And the way you look at these trades is like this. The green dotted line is the main indicator. Okay, that's going to tell you whether you're going to go long or short. So any setups that happen on the, you know, below the green line, that's going to be a short trade. So this little plus sign, that's your entry. Here's your target down here. I've made it fatter so it's easy to see. When you get to the first target here, that's going to be when you're going to apply some money management, and the stop is going to move from up here down to here, and you're going to eliminate all the risk from your trade. So you get to a risk-free trade as aggressively as you can while still giving the trade a chance to develop. Okay? And then the stop is right above. And so when you click on the setup bar, you easily could see the entire trade laid out for you. Like Mark said, the GPS, and all the numbers are lined up in the order of the dots. So you got your stop, your entry, your targets, and it's all really simple. Now you'll see on a lot of trades we're getting close to a 2-to-1 risk-reward ratio. On some smaller trades, it's not quite 2 to 1, but I'll just illustrate on this trade, then we'll look at a couple others too, and you'll see what I'm talking about. You're risking the distance between your entry and your stop, and the fixed target is down here, and you can see it's bigger. Okay, the bigger the trade, the closer you get to that 2 to 1. And then, of course, you might have something that would occur like yesterday. Let me just scroll back and show you the trade that finished yesterday's session, because this is another example. Notice that now it's above the green line, and that tells us we're going long, right? The whole trade's laid out for you. You got total structure. You don't have to guess. And just take a look at this risk reward, and you'll see there's a slightly bigger trade here. That's how much you're risking. And if you're just going to the target with one position, look at how much bigger your reward potential is. If you're trailing a second position, which is what this is designed for, and you could certainly grow your account up, well, check out what that risk reward ended up looking like. You're risking this much to make all that with the second position. This is really great. I mean, this was what, a 38, 43. This is a 43-point move, okay? One trade, 43 points times 25 euros. Do the math. Good money. The DAX has been a fantastic market. If I lived in Europe, I definitely want to be trading this. It has literally won 13 of the last 14 weeks, averaging over 1,600 euros a week with the two-position approach. That's like a 93% weekly winning percentage, and it's winning about 84% of all its sessions. So real strong, real easy. That's one of the the best futures markets you could trade right there. And the Euro Bund would be another example. If you had a smaller account, you could do quite well with the Euro Bund. But what I want to show you now is a Forex chart. My favorite way of trading Forex is using end of day. Okay, that means that the bar closes at the end of the day. I look at it one time, I place my trades, and it's the exact same technique. And you're going to catch every year 1 to 3 really big moves per year on any given pair, and that just happened on the Euro Yen. And we could look at the trade, the same anatomy of the trade, but I just wanted to show you dating back to the middle of November from here to here. This trade just finished a few days ago. Okay, this is nearly, it's well over 2,000 pips. If you're doing two positions and you're picking off these trades as they come and you're trailing them on up. This last trade alone, I mean, look at how accurate that target is. I think it missed by a pip or two. Luckily, I saw that before I went to bed, and I escaped with most of my profit. I made 655 pips on that one trade, and then a day later the trailer got out for 379 pips. And that's 1,000 pips right there. You go in small and you manage these trades. That's one of the things I like about Forex, is that you can adjust your position size to meet your account so that you're never risking more than 2%. And you could do it with the use of micros and minis until you grow your account up and you could put on the full size. So let me just show you really quick. We were looking at the anatomy of the trade, and again, you could see how this is going to give you really close to 2 to 1 just to that fixed target, you see? And they're all like this, but look at, you're risking this much here to make that much there. And what I love about this style of trading is that you remove yourself from the equation as much as humanly possible. Like James had pointed out, a very important part to successful trading is trade psychology, and it's the one thing that's the hardest to master. But you can do yourself a really big favor by just getting out of your own way. And when you have a daily chart like this, once a day, you look at your chart, you place your trades, you manage your trades, and then you're done till tomorrow. And I'm not going to sit here and watch one of these bars go up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. No, I'm just going to come back the next day, and if the stop moves, I'm going to move my stop. And then that's it. Maybe I'll look at a bunch of other pairs. I mean, I will for sure. I'm going to trade a lot of pairs in this fashion, and every week I'm going to be fairly active, handful of trades a week, sometimes more, sometimes less, but plenty to keep you busy. And little by little, you can build your account, still maintain a nice lifestyle, maintain your full-time jobs or whatever else you're doing, and also benefit in a very meticulous and structured way from the markets, and remove yourself from the equation, because let's face it, the human element is usually what sabotages most good trade strategies, and here's a way to remove it. So Mark, I want to keep this thing rolling, so let me hand this back to you. If there's any more questions, I'm happy to show more examples, and yeah, go for it.
Super. Thank you, Troy. Appreciate that. So, I mean, I think the real key to understand is there are a number of excellent opportunities during the European market hours. The things that you need to obviously be clear upon is, we're focused in on what's going to work best. Like, we'll get asked a lot, well, can I trade the S&P Mini or the Russell Mini during those hours? And while typically those markets are open to trade, we certainly would not suggest it or recommend it, because the idea is you should always be trading markets that have the highest odds of success, right? The best winning percentages during those times. You don't want to ever force a market to actually work, because we want to be stubborn, because we want to insist that this is the market that should be traded during that time. So a lot of our training and focus goes on really trying to narrow down where the best opportunities are overall. And sometimes some of our teaching is discouraging you from going down really the wrong rabbit hole, where you're going to put in a lot of time and effort, you're going to end up losing money and not be happy. So it's really about trying to really kickstart you in the right direction. So let's talk about a little bit the new class that is starting soon here on PTU. The idea behind the Premier Trader University is to combine the systems and the education, because what we kind of learned over the 17 years doing this is you can't always just have a system and then expect that everybody is going to be able to follow it and follow it correctly. So we kind of sort of learned that the missing piece was the education and the training. So we've got this team of 10 people here who do nothing but support and train and educate, and the idea is let's put those two things together, so not only do you get the great software, the great trade plans, and everything else, but you also really get taught how and when is best to trade these strategies. And whether that's a full-time income or a part-time income, everybody's objective listening here live probably a little bit different. And the way I like to do everything is break everything down in really small pieces that are easy to comprehend and learn. So we do 3 steps in order to get you educated on everything PTU. Step 1, step 2, step 3. So let's go through those steps. Step number 1 is what we call the prerequisites. All of you would start immediately with the prereq. The reason we do that is just like a college, they're always going to want to make sure you've got some of that math education, etc., because we want everybody on the same page once we start to train you specifically on the actual specific trading systems. So this is all home study. It was put together by the entire coaching team that you saw at the beginning. Everybody made a contribution to this, and we do everything to kind of get everybody up to speed on this style of trading. Pros and cons of markets and style, the best brokers, the best charting platforms, how to read the charts, platforms, very, very important that you're on professional platforms, technical analysis that matters. I mean, if you're like me, I got a lot of books on technical analysis. I never look at any of them, because the reality is 90-95% of it is all theory. It doesn't really necessarily work in real-time markets. So we only focus on things that we've learned can actually provide us an edge in our trading. Certainly risk management, trade psychology, developing the exact market and trade plans, all very critical. So when you are finished with the prereq here in the next week or two, you can then start with the undergraduate. And this is done live, but it's done live in the comfort of your home or office. It's over 2 days. We pack in everything you need. So this is very hyper-accelerated. This isn't a 4-year undergraduate that you have to worry about. We're not going to try to stretch this out on you for months. I mean, we can get through our trainings because everything is so crystal clear on the charts. In fact, when we first started this last year, I actually thought the learning curve was going to be longer. I thought we were going to have more problems getting everybody up to speed. That's probably been the most surprising thing for me, is how quickly everybody seems to get up to speed, because the way this is taught and programmed, you see the trades that are the trades. You don't have to synthesize 5 different manual and subjective things where everybody might have a different interpretation. Nobody has a different interpretation of a buy setup or a sell setup with the PTU systems. So the whole goal of the undergraduate is to learn and master the strategies, have access to all the great trade plans. So you've heard us talk a lot about markets that are really great in the European hours today, Forex and futures. We haven't talked about all the different markets that are available to you in the U.S. market hours, if that's of interest as well. And I'll show you just some of those here in a moment. So in the undergraduate, it's all about learning the strategies, mastering the strategies, and learning something that we call the art of trading. 90% mechanical, maybe even 95%, then 5 to 10% where you want to understand how charts behave. Like James showed you, chart level and key level adjustments. These are things that we teach you that will add quite a bit to your bottom line. In fact, I'm going to show you in a few slides here just how much it can add to your bottom line. When you finish the undergrad, you're ready to go live and ready to go live into the markets. From that point, I think a good thing to do is get a little bit of experience and then start to fine-tune what you're doing. And that's the whole idea behind starting with a specific major. It might be futures, it might be Forex, or it might be stock and options. Eventually, you can do all three, or you can focus in on just one. And this is all about being very intensive in just Forex specifically, or just futures specifically, because they actually are a little bit different, as you can imagine. You use the same system and the same software, but there's definitely nuances that are not the same when you trade Forex versus when you trade futures. I'm sure you'd all agree trading crude oil futures is going to be a little different, right, than trading the euro US dollar. Lots of things are the same. It's price movement, but there's just some things that you need to be very aware of that are different. So that's the whole idea behind the majors, where we can get very specific to that specific segment overall. In addition, we get very advanced. We go over some additional trade plans. We really end up arming you with way more possible plans than you need to trade. And I may mention that might say, well, I don't need more. You absolutely want more because you don't want any shortage of options. Markets do change. They change over months. Sometimes they change over years. What we're doing today is probably going to be different 24 months from now. You never want something that's going to hit a brick wall in performance. That's not good for you. It's not worth your while and your effort. So this is all about being very dynamic and making sure that you have lots of options available to you. So to give you an idea, in just some of the U.S. session, the Dow, the Russell E-mini, crude oil futures, we can also trade the German DAX extremely successfully in the U.S. hours as well. You could trade European and U.S., I don't know, take a big break in between, or you can focus on one or the other. The metals, the treasuries, the interest rates, the agriculturals, which are really only in the U.S. session, have great opportunities. In Forex, you've seen a number of the pairs that you can trade. It's a long laundry list of Forex pairs, especially on swing trading, that you can do in both European session or U.S. session. And then if you ever decide to really scale up your business, I know a lot of you aren't currently trading stock and options, but talk about a great place to deploy your capital. That would be in stock and options. Because again, I don't want you hitting a ceiling where you're doing fine at one or two contracts, you've grown your account from 5,000 to 20,000, and all of a sudden you've hit that brick wall again or that ceiling. That's not what this is about. This is about growing that account so you can trade multiple contracts, multiple markets, and eventually branch out even to other areas that maybe you've never even considered before. You get access to all three majors with the PTU when you enroll in the university. Now, you know, a moment ago I talked to you a little bit about training. Training is critical. Training is really the difference between a mechanical result and a result that you're going to actually want, because no additional time goes in using what we teach in the undergraduate and the major. You don't spend another minute. You just have more knowledge than most other traders that are out there. So this was, I looked at a sample size on 4 different markets and looked at the mechanical results, which you see in the PTU system column. And then I added in what we teach you in the undergrad. Same setups, but some key level adjustments, some chart level adjustments, some getting in sync. And you end up with a pretty nice increase in performance. And I looked at a whole bunch more markets, and it's everywhere from like 15% on the low up to, as you can see, 84% on the high. It's a significant increase for no additional time. Education is one of the best things you can have and empower yourself when it comes to trading. We showed the report card just like a school. I'm all about numbers. I'm all about the markets have to prove themselves. They have to show performance. They have to profit for us over time. I can't obsess over an individual trade or an individual day or even a week, but anytime I kind of lift the lens and look down at a series of trades, 10 trades, 20 trades, 50 trades, these markets had better perform, or none of us should be trading that specific market. So we literally update every single week how we're doing and how the performance is, so we know that the entire PTU community is in on the markets and the opportunities that are performing now. If that changes in a few months, we're prepared because we're always up to date on that performance. Some of the Forex swing trading results, because I know in Europe, for a lot of you, it's right, 90% of you, or 80-something%, I think, are doing Forex. So this was just swing trading on daily charts. I mean, you can't get any easier than that. And the results really have continued on, like Troy showed you, just since November on his Euro-Yen, up over 2,000 pips. You know, the JPY crosses have been awesome because they've had a lot of volatility, but it hasn't been a 1 or 2 day occurrence. This has been going on for 2 months now. Now, eventually, I see markets cycle up and down. So maybe the JPY crosses will slow down a little bit. Then all of a sudden, some of the USD crosses or something else will be the ones that are in vogue. So it's really nice because you can always be positioned, you know, where the opportunities are. Overall, we've had great testimonials over time. We get these in almost every single day. You know, Matt says, I've already gotten far more out of the experience than other products and education that cost a good bit more. Jeff talking about, however, your systems are working for me. He spent a lot of money on other courses. I have a small account, but it's building, and that plays to my example. I always like to show people $40 a day. If you can do $40 a day, you can build to a very substantial full-time income. Don't feel like you ever need to approach trading like the lottery, like gambling, like get rich quick. It is absolutely not the case at all. Some more great testimonials overall, and even more here. I always like the Adnian, where he talks about the only system in the world that I've ever come across that I can intellectually be comfortable with to trade, because you have to have confidence when you start entering the markets, because we all know it's built upon winners and it's built upon losers. More winners than losers, of course, that's critical, but we need to believe in the end results in the end, and that'll get us to take each additional trade. Now, I know I had a question on Trend Jumper and what's the university part of this. So if you're already on Trend Jumper, which I know some of you are, when you enroll into the university, you upgrade into the university, you get what we call the pro level calculator. It really does a lot of the things that you may be manually having to do in the Trend Jumper is now kind of done by the calculator. We kind of call it intelligent trade management. You'll have additional trade plans. You also have access only inside the university to our Trade Assist automation software, and that includes on PTU2 and Trend Jumper. We have the ability to automate some of what you've seen. It's only available inside the university, and then always a lot of class-based training to make sure that you master everything correctly. So right now we're enrolling for the class, the undergrad that starts on March 5th and 6th. The timing here is perfect because we have just over 2 weeks for you to get through the prerequisites. We are making available, if you wanted to kind of get a jump start on the undergraduate, and you don't have to, once you finish the prereq, we will let you look at the recordings that we finished in mid-January. So we just finished an undergraduate class. We had over 50 people in that class, but we're going to do the live training over 2 days on the 5th and 6th. So right now is the perfect time because you can really kind of leisurely get about the prereq, and once you go through the undergrad, you'll then be able to do the major, and also you'll immediately start in the live training rooms, which I'll talk about here in a moment. Now, some of the bonuses that we add, monthly recurring goes away. In case you're on Trend Jumper, that's going to go away. You won't have that at all. You'll get the Trend Jumper exclusives. You'll get 2 private coaching sessions, which you can do after you go through the undergrad or the major. Also, live in the market training every week. So we'll talk about that here in a moment. The best support in the business, because our trading team all trade live in the markets. They've all been former customers. They know exactly what you're going through. One thing that we do for existing owners is 4 days a week, live in the market during the U.S. market hours. We doubled it here in 2013 because it's so popular. We're training and calling the markets in real time. We've now also added the European markets twice a week with James during European market hours, training, teaching, calling the markets every single week. So you have these 6 different sessions available to you. You certainly can attend what you want. We record some of these sessions. All that's available inside our Owners Club. And this is on what I call the hard right edge of the chart. There's a lot of educators out there who are afraid of the live market because a live market is outside of our control. We have enough faith and confidence in our systems that whatever comes, comes. We, just like you, need to treat it like none of us can, change what happens next. We don't know what the next bar is going to do. We just, like Troy always says, we just lean on the trading systems to do their job. We get great feedback on these training sessions. You can see these came in recently. A lot of people had a great time in one of Troy's recent sessions, did extremely well, made money. The trades were great. They were cooperative. But it's also about the training. You can see, somebody talking about the depth of your knowledge is awesome, and you are a great teacher. So that to us matters maybe more than even the results on a given day. We want you guys to learn and to be able to become full professional traders. One thing to make available to you, there is this TradeStation scholarship. Now this is more for the futures and stock and options side because they will actually reimburse up to 100% of the cost of the PTU tuition in your commissions, which is really cool. So you can actually be trading, making money, and have your tuition reimbursed. But even without that, if you're on Forex, they'll give you 6 months for free. And later on, if you're doing markets that are commission-based, which Forex is not, you can still get your account coded. So down the road, they'll rebate you back commission. So overall, when you enroll in the university, what do you get? You get the PTU 2.0 and all of the trade plans, the markets we talked about here today, and everything else. The Trend Jumper, everything to do with Trend Jumper on futures and Forex. All the indicators, the software, the calculators that does the heavy lifting, everything that shows on the charts the exact entries and exits is what you get. The self-paced home study video, which is the prereq, 2-day live, also fully recorded and archived. In case you miss it or whatever the case may be, you don't have to attend it live. We prefer that you do because you can then interact with us and the other students throughout the 2 days, but you get full access to that. All 3 majors are included. No additional charge for each major, like a lot of other academies and universities love to charge you for every level, every little thing you do. This is all inclusive, all in. And you literally get plans on dozens of different markets, and I'm talking exact plans. Start at this time, end at this time, go for this many winners. These are our objectives. This is exactly how you trade it. In fact, I just released another one today for the European market hours, the Euro FX. So, we get very, very specific. The Trend Jumper exclusives to the university, the private coaching sessions, the live in the market trading every week, U.S. and European market hours. We also added stock and options 2 times a week. So in case you get into that, you can hear from Mike Rixey, our stock and options coach, our analyst on that. Lifetime access to the Owners Club, so you don't have any recurring on that. Training, videos, walkthroughs, trade plans, updates, all that. Interact with the coaches and students, all included overall. So what does it cost? It's $39.97 if you're brand new to NetPicks, or you can just do a simple 4-pay with no interest at $9.99 over 4 consecutive months. If you already own another NetPicks course, we take an additional $1,000 off and drop it down to $29.97 all in, all inclusive, or just do a 4-pay monthly, $749. If you already own Trend Jumper, you can take advantage of the Trend Jumper trade-in. So that drops it another $997, and you can start at just $2,000. No payment plan on that one because it's such a really good deal. But these are the options available to you. The class starts early March. We're down to 29 seats at this point. Last time we went to 50, and we went over. This time we're going to try to stick to the 40. And I also wanted to kind of make available to you a couple other things. Number one is we have 100% satisfaction guarantee. I ask 4 things of you. Review the prereqs, go to the live undergrad or watch it on replay, install the systems, and make at least 25 consecutive trades live or demo. You don't have to put live money at stake. If you do that, I know that you will have learned the system. But if you do that and you say, hey, you know what, this still isn't for me, you can return it. It won't work for you any longer, but you'll have the the knowledge knowing that we'll refund you 100%. So it is no risk to go through the education and the training, and I can't see any reason why you would ever want to give it back once you see what you can do with it. But I understand you want to have that insurance. So we back this up. We've been doing this for 17 years. I just ask a few things from you. You just be serious. I also wanted to pass along, because you sat through the live webinar, give you a discount for a reward on that, and you can use the code when you go to checkout, 500 off, and this will actually knock down the full enrollment prices. So from $39.97, it will knock it down to $34.97. If you do the full pay at the $29.97, it will knock it down to $24.97. So you can do that way at $34.97 or $24, or just go ahead and do the 4 pays if that's easier for you. That's at $9.99 and then the $7.49 a month. We've shown you multiple trade plans that make that, in some cases, within the month. This is all about, I understand, ROI, right? You want a return on the investment of time and money that you spend on this education. There is certainly nothing that we've ever put out that is this comprehensive, that is this structured, and goes to this level of detail that the entire team here supports and literally is involved in every single day. I mean, this is very much almost like a living organism, what happens with the PTU. So we've tried to make it the best overall all-inclusive deal that we can. We know we blow away most of the universities out there and the academies that kind of tend to nickel and dime you. One of them that I looked at, by the time you buy everything, is $25,000. You start at a lower amount, and by the time you're even able to use it, you're way up there. The nice thing about this is this is all-inclusive. Again, thinking through how quickly can I make my money back, that's what I'd be thinking of if I was in your shoes. That's what I want you to do. I want you to be thinking about that this way. This isn't a hobby, right? This is a career for income overall. So what I want to do now is, I know we've been answering a lot of questions in the text, and I want to go ahead and see if we've got some more here that we can pick up. Brian, is there any that you wanted to cover before I read through some of these?
Yeah, Mark, just one quick one. A very common question being asked behind the scenes here is the platforms that are supported inside of PTU, and the answer really simply is TradeStation. You've seen a lot of our examples today on TradeStation, and NinjaTrader is your other option. So you need to chart on one of those two platforms, and then you can trade with any broker of your choice. So there's a lot of opportunity for you to get involved with different brokers out there. So that's the one very common question I kind of wanted to answer there, Mark. And there were a few down, if you read down through, Mark, you'll see that I was mentioning you would answer towards the end. Actually, the one you did, the Keltner Bells question, you did answer already, so that one's good.
All right, very good. There's a quick question here for James. Where did it go? It was talking about German tax, and I lost it. I just saw it. Oh, James, so from John, what effect on your trading will the financial transaction tax being introduced in Germany at all? This tax is $50 per contract round trip on the DAX, win, lose, or draw. So it's nothing I'm aware of, but maybe, James, that's something you've heard about?
Well, I think there's a lot going on at the moment. I think there's a lot of fighting going on. I'm not sure what will happen. Ultimately, I don't know exactly when things will happen. Obviously, if something does happen that changes it to that level, it could make a big difference. I mean, the DAX moves quite a lot anyway, so I mean, you can make quite a bit on one trade. Maybe it changes the way that you trade it. Maybe it changes the way that the product is altogether. I think ultimately, though, if they do something to that level, it could kill a product dead overnight. So, you know, people have messed with markets before, and well, ultimately, people just walk away. So, you know, if something happened in the DAX, there would always be another contract, and this is what you, Mark, were talking about before. There's so many different options. So that's really what I'm about. I want to have something else to trade if something like that were to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's important. I think it's the flexibility is key. I've been doing this for 17 years. What we started in NetPicks is not necessarily what we're doing here 17 years later. When we first started, we did a market primarily called OEX options. Now, some of you, if you've been around a long time like me, you know what OEX options are. When's the last time you heard about somebody trading OEX options? It's probably been a number of years. That's the point. You know, Forex is very popular now. It may be or may not be 5 years from now. You want to have flexibility. That's why all of our systems are built to be dynamic. That's why we can show that they work on 15, 20 different markets. That's important because too often, even for me personally, I've traded something that seemed to only work in a very specific market condition. And even the largest traders in the world, the largest hedge funds, they always adjust their formulas and what they do because things do change. And the other point to that, I think, like James mentioned, is maybe don't plan for something until it becomes a true regulation, and until the dust settles. We have a lot of things going on here in the U.S., and half the time you don't really know what's ultimately going to become law. So I guess just kind of wait and see a little bit. Al was asking, do we get the Pro Calc at the university? Yes, I mean you're going to get. I think you're referring, Al, to the Trend Jumper, the Pro Calculator, and that's exactly right. You will get the Pro level, the better / the best calculator on Trend Jumper, and it's well worth it. It does a lot of the interactive thinking for you. So as you guys know, when you're placing trades and it gets a little bit tense, sometimes the last thing you want to do is to have to think, because it's so important to get the trade in perfectly and properly, and that calculator does a lot of that thinking for you. You can go back later and confirm it, but it's nice to know that the numbers that are popping up on the chart are what you just need to mimic and track. Abby, on your question on Thinkorswim, you can absolutely trade at Thinkorswim. In fact, Troy, I think you trade, don't you, at Thinkorswim?
Yeah, I definitely do. I use Thinkorswim every day, but I'm charting on TradeStation and making my decisions based on my TradeStation charts.
Exactly. So even when we're coming out here in a few weeks with the Trend Jumper on MetaTrader, so those of you who want to do the daily Forex plans and use MetaTrader, you'll be able to. You can trade at any broker you want. It doesn't have to be a MetaTrader broker. Sorry, it doesn't have to be a specific broker, even a specific MetaTrader broker. So that's the key. But you want to chart on NinjaTrader or chart on TradeStation in order to get your setups, and then go ahead and execute wherever you're comfortable with. I know Troy's a big fan of Thinkorswim. He gets really good executions. So by all means, go for it. Ross says, can you tell me if trading the Eurobond is a good trading coming into the New York session? Also, has anyone tried trading the iron ore swap contracts? Might be on the ICE. Eurobond on my plans have mostly been geared towards the European market hours. I can't tell you I've looked specifically at the U.S. hours on the Bund anyway. Certainly the DAX works great in the U.S. hours. I'm going to ask the question of either James or Troy if you guys have any idea on that, if you've looked at U.S. session on the Bund.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it does work, but there are probably just better products to trade. I mean, the other thing is that the European markets, the Eurex markets in particular, do tend to dry up in liquidity, even though they go till 9 GMT. Probably by about 6, it's starting to, the liquidity's drying up. So you really got to take that into account. So yeah, they will trade, and remember that, of course, like the ECB press conference is 1:30 GMT as well. So on those days, of course, markets can move longer into the US session, but realistically, you probably want to be done by about 4:30 GMT, which is like 11:30 Eastern Standard Time.
Yeah, and I would say that's what we kind of find in our U.S. plans for instance, the DAX. The moves kind of got to happen in those first couple hours of the U.S. session. Otherwise, it starts to kind of spiral sideways.
Right.
And you don't really want to be in a spiraling sideways market, because those can also start to sag. If you catch a buy, they start to kind of pull back in towards the end. So I would agree with you certainly on that. Plus, there's I think James makes the great point, and we do this a lot in the training. There's just better options. We have a lot of people that come to us and go, I really want to trade the S&P Mini, because everybody trades the S&P Mini. It has a million contracts per day, so that's got to be where all the money is. And then we do the exact opposite and tell people, not really. That's one of the hardest markets to trade on the futures markets, and it's very contrary to what a lot of people hear or expect. But if the S&P Mini was easier to trade, you better believe I would be doing it every single day. There's a reason that I don't. I'm not restricted from trading it, and the same goes for some of these other things. We really want you guys to spend your time, those of you who said 1 to 2 hours or 2 to 4 hours, where you have the highest odds of success. So let's go ahead and make a final call out for any additional questions that we have, anything to do with the European market hours, the U.S. market hours, any final questions on the university. Definitely take advantage of the code. I did have somebody ask for the code again. I don't know if I brought it back up. Let me see. Okay, there's the code on the screen just so you have it. to that gentleman who needed the code 500 off. You just put that in, it'll automatically come off on the order form. Like I mentioned, also I get the question, what do we do first? So first thing you'll do is you'll be in the Owners Club. You'll want to start to go through the prerequisites. There's quite a bit of videos there. If you are a beginner, you're going to want to go through all of it in detail. If you're advanced, you can pick and choose a little bit more what you want to go through and go through some of it a little bit quicker. Then absolutely please try to attend the live training starting on the 5th of March and the 6th. If you can't make it, we'll record it, make it available usually later that same day, and you can start to stream it. You then will want to start attend the live training rooms, and this process will move very quickly. Between now and less than 30 days, you guys will be fully up and running. You'll be live in the markets. You'll be doing those one contract trade plans, and of course, we'll support you ongoing for as long as it takes for you to get everything mastered. But that part I've seen has been pretty quick overall. All right, so I guess I'm going to ask James, anything that you want to add before we wrap it up?
No, I think that's pretty much covered everything. Just that, if you do come and check out the EU room and say hello and get trading some of those European products. Awesome. And Troy, anything to wrap up with?
Mark, I just want to welcome the new members who have just joined us, and I'm looking forward to getting to know you guys, and take advantage of the live rooms, ask questions, and learn as you go. It's the best way to learn. These are great trade strategies. Been having a lot of success with them, and you can too. Just take advantage of all your resources as a Owners Club member.
Yeah, very good. Thank you, Troy. I mean, obviously, it's you got to take a leap. We know that it's a big decision. If you need to talk to us a little bit more in detail before you take that leap and make the decision, let me go ahead and put up on the screen for you some contact info. By all means, email us, call us, chat with us online. Whatever it takes, we want to make sure that you're, definitely have every possible question answered so you can feel confident to get going. But it's a great choice. It's probably the best choice that you can make for your trading career. We have a lot of pride in the PTU, and we've been through, I think now 5, maybe 6 classes. It's just been a tremendous experience for all of us. We really love doing it and love bringing in the new people as well. Edward, yeah, you did miss the webinar. I know you just kind of came in. So we did record it. It'll end up being posted on this Premier Trader University link you see on the screen. So it usually takes us a day or so to get it out there. So definitely come back and you'll be able to watch the beginning section on replay and where we talk about all the different European markets that we cover. All right, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up there. We have some webinars coming up this weekend. I think it's this weekend, Sunday night. We have one on stock and options. Mike Rixey. So even if you're not quite sure about stock and options, come into that webinar. He's kind of our pro. He's always got some great options trades going that I get very jealous of because I haven't spent enough time in the equities world. But you'll learn quite a bit on his favorite markets, stocks to trade, and that'll be Sunday night. So by all means, sign up for that, and we'll be looking forward to talking to you, some of you there, and then of course in the live rooms and the training coming up. Have a great day or a great evening. Thanks a lot again for attending today.